here, no time to fear. Karel is so near because showtime is here. So on with the show, let's give it a go. Karel is the one that you need to know. Now it's showtime.
It is time for a special half-hour edition of This Gay Week, including professional baseball teams are canceling games. Why? What the hell's going on in Turkey? We'll talk about that. Will Margaret Thatcher's policy come under review finally? Yes, and so much more.
Now it's showtime.
All right, it is This Gay Week at the Karel Show with Scott Jacobsen for the Good Man Project, normally in Canada, but now he is in Ukraine. And we do this every week to entertain you all and tell you what's going on in the world of gayness. One of us being gay, the other being gay adjacent. I'll let you figure out which one is which. but he'd be a cuter gay than me. You'd be a bigger hit in the gay community than I am, actually. But hey, that's
correct.
Yeah. No, believe me, I know. I'm gay. I know these things. All right, let's kick right into it. There's a couple things going on, and I know that I'll let you lead, and I'll give you my comments on the stories. But I did want to start with this. We have touched upon this on a couple weeks now, and I'm starting to see an alarming trend on social media of gay men mostly, who are out there saying, "I don't want to be part of the alphabet anymore. I don't have anything in common with trans people. I don't have anything in common with queer people. I don't even know what intersex is, or blah blah blah." I would just like to go on record here with you and everyone else is saying, shut the fuck up. The reason that we have all banded together, which escapes your young, warped little Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Y minds, millennial minds, is that there's power in numbers. If gays are a small percentage of the population, we need a group in order to have a voice, to have a voting bloc, in order to have economic power. And that means we have to have allies. When gays became gays and lesbians, I have nothing in common with lesbians. I don't have plaid and I don't have cats. And yet we were a larger voting bloc with lesbians on our side. The same thing with the trans community. We are a voting bloc. We are an economic bloc, and we are stronger together, which is why the marginalized communities of sexuality, there's many marginalized communities, but the marginalized communities that deal with sexual orientation or sexuality have banded together. And that's because we're all in the same boat, and we need a larger voice in politics and a larger voice in corporate America. And we're not going to get that if all the letters are off fractioned on their own. So for those of you that don't think we need the T in LGBT, you don't know crap about your history. For those of you that don't think you don't have anything in common with trans people or with lesbians or with bi people, then you've never met any. So as far as I'm concerned, that is an infuriating argument. It's an infuriating group of stories. And I say any gay person that is out there talking this shit needs to shut up and do some history lessons. But that's just me.
Agree.
That's just me. All right, now to the stories at hand. Play roulette, pick one, let's talk.
I think we should go with yours first. I think it's a perfectly fine story. So this is from SF Gate by Alex Simon, sports editor, noting that San Francisco Giants saga has been lingering. The indie team forfeits pride game over player protest, the title reads.
Yes, now the saga, by the way, with the Giants is that the Giants were having a pride night, and several of their players objected, didn't want to wear the costumes, blah, 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 blah. And so there was drama, and the Giants had to do things. And so now another team was going to have a pride night, the York Revolution it's called, and they were going to have a pride night. So they were going to wear rainbow-colored outfits and everything. Several of the players decided to be homophobes and say, we don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. So instead of having the game and not having the pride night, they canceled the game. They said, you know what? And I say good for the franchise, because instead of compromising or instead of, whatever, they said, no, our values are we support the gay and lesbian community. And if you players don't want to support the community, then we're not going to let you play. We just won't even have the game. So I support what they did when several of their players refused to wear the scheduled Pride Night jersey, and the club decided that hosting the event is more important than forcing players to wear jerseys they are not comfortable with and playing the game. As a result, out of respect for the Pride community and the York community as a whole, the York Revolution has decided that the game on Thursday, June 18th, which is tonight, or yesterday evening, will be forfeited, and that Pride Night will continue on as the featured element of the evening at the Wellspan Park. So they still had the Pride Night at the park.
If you're not visiting reallykarel.com daily, you're missing out. Get the podcast, videos, and the blog, including recipes, at reallykarel.com. That's really KAREL.com.
Showtime is here, no time to fear. Karel is so near because showtime is here. So on with the show, let's give it a go. Karel is the one that you need to know.
And I say good for this team. They still had the Pride Night. They just said to the players, hey, you don't want to play? Then guess what? You're not going to play. We'll forfeit the game. You'll lose the game. Now, the Revolution and the Blue Crabs, who they were going to play, which if your name is the Blue Crabs, how can you be anti-gay? Play in the Atlantic League of Professional Baseball, are not affiliated with any major league clubs. But this is some of the drama. The Dodgers had a Pride Night. Some of their players objected, didn't want to play, didn't want to wear the outfits. And some decided to wear Bible verses on their baseball caps. And when the team in San Francisco and the team in LA decided that they were going to fine any players that did that, several Christian organizations and Christian stars came forward and said they would pay the fines of those players because their homophobia knows no bounds either. But congratulations to the Revolution. At least they still had the Pride Night, even though they didn't have the game. So the players lost out, but not the gay people. So good for them. I don't know. How in Canada do your sports teams celebrate Pride at all?
I don't think much bones are made about it one way or the other. I do a weekly series with a colleague from New York who's currently traveling, and we've done it for at least a half a year now. And every time there's more prominent stories around anti-Semitic violence than anti-gay rhetoric or activities. In particular on sports, that doesn't tend to come up as much. I mean, because obviously...
Look, I've never understood Pride Nights at baseball, this and that. I'm not a sports fan. And while I know there are gay and lesbian sports fans, I don't know many. However, for some reason, softball and baseball seems to be like a sport the gays play. There's tons of gay softball teams. So I can see gays going to a baseball thing. I thought we would be attracted to things like, I don't know, WWE or some, half-naked men in Speedos. But there is a large group of gay men and women that like, baseball. Now, the communications director, someone high-ranking in the Dodgers, is actually a friend of mine. He used to be the program director at KABC Radio, and he is gay, and his husband and he got married on the field at Dodger Stadium. Because he's high-ranking there in their ranks, and so I know they have many pro-gay people there working in the Dodgers. I know the Dodgers try to be pro-gay, but their history with it is kind of bad. They canceled an event with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence and got flack for that a few years back. So the Dodgers have been iffy on gay rights. The Giants, you would think the San Francisco Giants, hello. You're in San Francisco and you're called the Giants. That attracts gay people right there. So you would think there wouldn't be any of their players that were homophobic, but obviously there are. I'm religious phobic, so they want to go out there and spread their religion and keep that off the field. But this is happening. Look, Pride Month is under attack from politicians who are passing, Family Month or Nuclear Family Month, from sports teams who are now allowing their players to rebel, And it's directly related to Donald Trump and the anti-trans, anti-gay rhetoric that Donald Trump and his ilk are putting out there. But this month we need Pride more than ever, and it appears to be being canceled more than ever. So from gay people. I just read an editorial at Salon from a gay guy who thinks that Pride doesn't include him because he's not, quote, a typical gay. I'm like, does this young queen even know what the hell he's talking about? And he doesn't. He just did a 2,000-word essay, and I read the entire thing, and I thought, this man is blowing it out his ass. He doesn't know a thing. But Pride has now become a commodity, and it's not a protest. And yes, it's commercial now, but that doesn't mean it's not a protest, and it doesn't mean that it's not needed. So anyway, next story.
He's focusing on the exterior rather than on the principle.
Yeah, exactly.
The actual motivation.
All right, next.
Next one. Human Rights Watch has been warning that Turkey has been reviving proposals to criminalize LGBT expression, restrict gender affirming care, raise surgical eligibility to 25, require sterilization, and penalize providers. Human Rights Watch has been saying that this measures violate privacy, health, legal recognition, equality, and international human rights obligations. Turkey is one of those in-between countries, and we're seeing some significant repression coming out of them. What are your thoughts on these, and does this buck any trend that you...
Well, as Hungary is going in the opposite direction, getting rid of their anti-gay laws, here we have Turkey going in the exact opposite direction. So it's sort of a yin and a yang. We're winning over here, we're losing over here, which is fine. First of all, Turkish prisons are synonymous with gay sex. I saw the movie Midnight Express, so I don't know what they're all up in arms about over in Turkey. And your country is called Turkey, for the love of God, gobble, gobble, hello. But anyway, you would think they'd be welcoming of gays. We gobble. But it's religion, okay? And it's religion that's been entrenched for thousands, of years, which is odd because Turkey... back before, let's go back to Istanbul if you'd like, or Constantinople or whatever. But Turkey used to be a very liberal, very arts-centered country, in ancient history, and was very accepting. It's only of late that Turkey has decided to go the other direction. And that is because of the influence religion is having on their politics. Also, the countries that Turkey allies itself with and their policies. Remember, Turkey, sometimes they're friends with Russia, sometimes they're not, but we know that Russia is anti-gay, Turkey and China. So it's not just what's going on inside of Turkey, it's what do the leaders have to gain geopolitically by being anti-gay? So if by being anti-gay, Turkey gains political allies, they'll do it. It's sad, and if you're gay and you live in Turkey, leave. But that's the way it is right now. And yes, everything that the Human Rights Watch has said is true. In other words, it will do all of those things. It will cause harm. It will cause damage. But the Turkish government doesn't care. And then the question is going to become, are the courts going to enforce these laws? Are they going to mandate sterilization? How far is this going to go? But it's going in the wrong direction. And if I were gay, I'd think twice about living in Turkey right now. I just would. I would take my money. But there are some who see that we always talk about this, and I flippantly say, why don't they get out? As you know, I'm trapped in America. I can't leave. I don't have the money to leave the United States. I have a couple $100,000 if I sell my house. That's not enough to go start a life anew somewhere. So I relate that if you're gay in Turkey, what are you going to do? I mean, because you can't leave. I get it. The sad statement is that you're going to suffer right now until you're able to rally enough people and until it is politically, until there's an advantage politically for them to change their rules. Right now there isn't. They're headed in a very conservative direction. They're happy to be headed in that direction. They're getting support from other nations to go in that direction, so they're going in that direction. When the money pendulum swings and suddenly it's more profitable for Turkey to welcome gays, they will. But until it's profitable and until some of their allies do it, they're going to keep making anti-gay laws.
Another factors about this analysis I think are important. Typically, a lot of these countries, they don't share ideological governance systems. North Korea, necrocratic. Russia, autocratic. China, communist. Iran, Islamic theocratic with a bit of Plato's Republic. Turkey, Islamic. A primary key factor in all those things that unite them are powerful men who don't have necessary term limits, or they get the term limits extended. And so they can really impose these policies over a longer period of time. That's part one. Part two, a lot of these domination-based systems come associated with rigid gender identities.
Yes.
So any deviancy is then punished. And so in this
Which
case,
is
we're also
ridiculous.
seeing that.
I've never understood why governments concern themselves with sexuality or sexual orientation. I will never understand that. They have other... Look, Turkey has bigger fish to fry than who's dorking who. I mean, basically a lot of them live in mud huts. The economy is not great. One of their biggest exports is hazelnuts, believe it or not. And those crops are failing, so economically they're not doing well. They have child labor picking the hazelnuts, which is why vegans are protesting against hazelnuts. I'm not. I love Nutella. Well, vegan Nutella. But they're using child labor to pick this, so they have child labor issues there. They have a lot of issues in Turkey that they could be addressing to help their people. This is not one of them. I mean, in May, they literally prosecuted a singer in May. He was acquitted, but he stood trial for a song that he sang that alleged same-sex desire. And they arrested the guy, and he had to go to court. They acquitted him. I guess it wasn't a good song. But, it certainly wasn't I'm Too Sexy for My Shirt. But, it's a singer. They had, they put a singer on trial. So right now it's bad to be gay in Turkey. I hope that some of the people there seek asylum in other countries and can get out any way they can until it gets better.
Fair. Do you want to pick the next two? Me too.
Oh, you go. It's technically your segment.
So I like this one out of Pink News. We're reporting out a petition seeking a public inquiry into Section 28.
Yes.
Margaret Thatcher's, we're harking way back, anti-LGBT law affecting schools.
Hey, watch it, dude. I remember when they put that in place. I was in my 20s.
You're still in your 20s.
Yeah. Well, Boy
Everybody
George.
in line.
Boy George had a
Karel's
lot.
always in his 20s.
Boy George had a lot to say about Section 28 back when he was, 20, because he was in his 20s as well. Part of Boy George and Lee Bowery's, who Boy George copied, entire persona was to flip off Margaret Thatcher. The roots of punk music are in the youth rebellion to Margaret Thatcher and Section 28. So we owe a lot to the anger that came about after Section 28. And because it was such a ridiculous law, which we report here on laws in other countries that were like this law. Section 28 said you couldn't promote LGBTQ causes. They wanted books removed from schools. It was basically a gay ban. And the backlash to Section 28 has now made the UK one of the best places in the world for gays. So I don't want to say they kind of owe that to Margaret Thatcher being such an ass, but because she went so far to the right, now in the UK, gay rights are very much to the left. And so, again, a pendulum. She swung it this way, and then it swung back this way. But I think it's great that they're going to do an inquisition into it because it really damaged people over there. Kids were harmed. Violence was perpetrated. Benefits were denied. Bad things happened under Section 28. And there should be some sort of repercussion for that. She's long gone, but others aren't.
Sure. Yeah, set fire to the Thatcher roof.
Yeah. Remember, it went from 88, from when I was 26 years old, until 2003. It was only repealed 23 years ago. So that's...
Was that Tony Blair era?
Yes, I believe it was Tony Blair. Wow. Yes. Students then were not able to get support at schools. Staff were forced to hide their identity, fearing they'd be sacked. It was bad. It was a witch hunt.
Next story.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, Scotland repealed it in 2000 before the UK.
Go Scotland.
Yeah, go Scotland.
I've always held that Scottish people with their accent are the best storytellers. Simply
I will
because
tell
of
you
the
right now,
accent.
there's a Scott guy on Apple Fitness Plus, Dan. Oh my God. I'd move to Scotland just to marry him.
So the Guardian has reported or described a seal pride in South Korea, drawing tens of thousands despite LGBTQ plus protections, religious opposition, and continued exclusion from Seoul Plaza. Participants celebrated visibility, mutual support, and legal progress while urging lawmakers and companies to stop ignoring queer Koreans publicly. Thoughts?
Well, and the mayor of Seoul said he can't support homosexuality. He said that holding pride at the city's main square is not desirable. But the organizers of the event said, just stop pretending we don't exist. We're here, we're queer, get used to it. And so they turned out in droves. Tens of thousands of people poured into Central Seoul to celebrate. And I don't see why he doesn't like that. That's a shit ton of money just got poured into Seoul in tourist dollars and hotels and food and everything else, lubricant. So, you know, I mean...
Patreon is the way to show you care. Subscribe today if you dare. Keep the show on there. Patreon is the way. Now it's showtime.
So they couldn't have it in the town square, but they did have it at a festival ground in another location. They had university clubs, diplomatic missions, including the British Embassy came. And days earlier, a Seoul court had offered a rare step forward for these people, ruling that a same-sex couple who had shared their lives and finances constituted a protected legal union, even as same-sex marriage is not legally recognized in South Korea, which is odd because South Korea is progressive. It is. And it's odd that this is still, of course, it's the Asian world. And there are two places where it's really tough to be gay. The Asian world and the Muslim world. And those two worlds overlap. A lot of South Asians and such are Muslim. And so there's a heavy Muslim, and believe it or not, Buddhists who are supposed to be all Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and all of that, there have not been that accepting of gay people. They are now.
Highly misogynistic too.
You know, the Dalai Lama has sort of evolved, but he wasn't always so pro-gay, which is odd for a group of people who wear orange dresses that they wouldn't, you know. But so in Southeast Asia and Korea and other places, it's still rough. It's rough everywhere, but it's rough in South Korea, and it shouldn't be because they're very progressive there.
Should add, we don't necessarily have the strength of numbers with regards to the religious in South Korea, because it has one of the largest atheist no religious affiliation populations in the world, and so it's less of religious.
But it's still the Protestants there who are only 1/5 of the population, who are the ones that are the most vocal in their opposition to pride. So
interesting.
So the Protestants are the ones who are causing the problem. And even though they're only 1/5 of the population, they're a loud 1/5, and others listen.
Fair. Next story. Them reports that the Trump administration is going to restore 988's specialized LGBTQ plus youth crisis line by year's end after eliminating it. Officials cite congressional direction, but advocates remain skeptical as implementation clashes with federal policies denying transgender recognition and inclusion. So we're seeing, again, as you're noting, international pendulum swings. We're also noting domestic pendulum swings.
No, if they're allowing this, it's because they're afraid of getting sued or they're afraid of a court compelling them to do it. They would not do it out of the goodness of their heart or because it's the right thing to do. The Trump administration wouldn't know the right thing to do if it jumped up and bit them in the ass. So
it's the Nietzsche phrase that it's not the Christians' love for us that prevents them from burning us at the stake. It's the impotence of their love.
Right. So this was based on a lawsuit. And, you know, instead of, you know, fighting the lawsuit, they decided to let's go ahead and do it. And also a lot of them are running, and dead kids aren't a good platform to run on. So, I mean, truly. The HHS spokesperson said, working with the 988 network administrator, Vibrant Emotional Health, to reactivate Press 3 operations, so it's Press 3 if you're gay, by the end of the year. The spokesperson described the effort as part of Congress's fiscal year 2026 directive to restore the services. So Congress had to tell them to do it. And Congress already had the money allocated, so they're like, do it. This was not something they wanted to do. But a bipartisan group of lawmakers obtained earlier by the advocate, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, said on behalf of the HHS, Robert Kennedy Jr., that is evaluating how to restore the 988 Lifeline specialized services for LGBTQ youth, commonly known as Press 3, following Congress's direction. And I believe that Congress put a caveat in there, I'd have to double check in the story, where the other funding was tied to this. So if they didn't do this, they weren't going to get other money. So they said, oh, fuck it, we'll just do it to get this money. So, but believe me, they were forced to by Congress, and it was over money. But they did it. However, don't get too happy, because the agency said that restoration would need to comply with Donald Trump's executive order, which requires federal agencies to recognize only two genders and reject federal recognition of transgendered identities. So how are you going to set up a Press 3 option for people who are trans and questioning if you can't talk to them about being trans and questioning? So again, this will probably end up in court. We'll see. But, but good for Congress.
Legislative work to erase people.
Well, yeah. I mean, at least, look, Congress is pretty useless at this point, but at least Congress could not have been clearer. The Trump administration must restore the 988 Lifeline. They must. Congress did not leave them. They said the president executive orders cannot override federal law, and Congress already settled this question. So Congress already set up this hotline. They already said it was going to be for trans people, gay people, bi people, and his executive order can't override that, which I'm sure he's pissed about. Next.
Good news from UCA News. Talking about faith leaders welcoming Japan's first national LGBT awareness plan. Cabinet approved framework calling for training, research, public education, consultation systems, while affirming unjust discrimination is unacceptable across businesses, governments, schools, local communities, and workplaces nationwide.
Did you see the Buddhist monk in the story that was interviewed declined to give his name?
Let me pull it up.
The Buddhist leader cautioned that changing social attitudes would take time. Okay, I applaud Japan for this. I do. It's just kind of insulting as a gay man that you have to actually counsel people and tell people how not to discriminate against gays. I mean, it seems pretty simple. Just treat everybody like you want to be treated fairly, period. End of story. So it's kind of odd to me that the National Cabinet's decision to adopt a plan aimed at promoting public understanding of gay people and other sexual minorities. What is there to understand? We're human, and instead of going with people of the opposite gender, we go with the people of the same gender. That's not hard to understand. So I get it, and good for them, but I think all across the globe, we make far too much about the complex issue of gay. It's not hard. Treat us like you treat anyone else. There you go. That's it. Treat us like you treat anybody else.
Also, footnote, you don't have to understand something to accept equal rights for that population.
Well, we'll end with that because that says it all. You ain't got to understand me. Don't discriminate against me. Scott from the Ukraine, the Good Man Project, Scott Jacobsen, this gay week. I am Karel. Be who you want to be, so long as it doesn't hurt anybody.
It's broadcasting from a completely different point of view. Yours. Listen daily to the Karel Cast on your favorite streaming service. You're listening to the Karel Cast. Driving you home or driving you crazy. It's broadcasting from a completely different point of view. Yours. Listen daily to the Karel Cast on your favorite streaming service.